Diamond P Sports presents championship drag racing from the National Hot Rod Association. The 1980 Springnationals. Brought to you by Goodyear Arriva, a steel-belted radial so new, even its footprint tells you it's different. And by Pioneer Car Stereo, the developers of Super Tuner technology for the best sound going. And by Suzuki Motorcycles. When it comes to all-around performance, nobody outperforms Suzuki. The heartland of America, Columbus, Ohio, and National Trail Raceway for the 16th annual running of the National Hot Rod Association Springnationals Drag Racing Championships, and the weekend packed with excitement. An incredibly fortunate driver, Tim Gross, hearing the cheers of the crowd as he walks away from the wreckage of one of the worst crashes in all of motorsports. A $40,000 funny car is a pile of junk. That's what happened to Tim Gross's Datsun 280Z bodied funny car as it slammed into both guardrails at National Trail Raceway during a qualifying attempt. The crew having to lift the remains of the chassis and engine. You notice the front wheels completely gone from the car. Tim Gross looking on, very fortunate to be able to even watch what's going on at this moment. Let's watch as Tim Gross, in slow motion, you see it here, losing control of the car, slams first into the guardrail. On the left side of the racetrack, the car almost turning over at that point, coming back down onto what remains of four wheels, heads directly across track and slams into the guardrail on the right-hand side. The body separates from the car, and now the slow, agonizing tumble with the driver inside the roll cage, down the guardrail again and again. Fire breaks out when the fuel tank explodes. Tim Gross, encased inside the car, is conscious. You can see him moving around. He starts reaching for the seatbelt release as crew members from the staging lanes begin their pursuit of this tumbling funny car, trying to offer some assistance. But is Tim Gross doing it himself as he reaches for the seatbelt release, gets the belts loose, gets his legs first out of the car. He then rolls out, hits the ground, and starts running.
Well, Tim, amazingly enough, other than a ripped fire suit and a little spot on your finger, you look hale and hearty.
I feel fine. A little bit sore, but a little disappointed more than anything, I would suppose.
Well, I've seldom seen a driver, I've never seen a driver take that kind of a pounding in a funny car and come out as well as you have.
Well, I don't know if that deserves an award or not, but I would say that I could see that I was definitely in trouble. The throttle was stuck. I attempted to lift up the throttle, and when it came around, I knew I was going to hit the guardrail, so I just tucked myself in as best as I could and tried to ride it out.
When you saw the fire, obviously, to get out.
Well, right, the immediate thought, yeah. I really had no idea it was really that bad. In fact, to tell you the truth, I don't think I even felt the second impact. I was probably momentarily knocked out.
Well, just that you're standing here talking to me says a lot about the rules and the car builders.
Definitely for the safety, yeah, because really the whole back half of the car stayed completely intact. Those rear tires are definitely a cushion. Added security there, so as it rolled over and it was on the rail, with the way the rules are set up, of course, I was completely covered.
It's a very lucky Tim Gross to be able to talk with Steve Evans. Hello, everybody. I'm Dave McClelland, and we'll be back in a moment.
Bobby Unser, Richard Petty, Dan Gurney, Cale Yarborough. They put Goodyear's new Wingfoot radio through its paces.
It's quick,
Wingfoot, designed for the world's quickest cars.
It's a great road tire.
Built to give you a superb combination of handling and ride.
It really grips.
More agile, more responsive than any high-performance radial tire Goodyear has ever offered.
It's a winner.
Goodyear's ultimate handling option for your performance car. Goodyear's new Wingfoot Radial.
It's a winner.
It's been brewing for a long time. A second generation of Pioneer Super Tuners with advanced high-performance FM reception. And success came, not just on paper, but in a moving car. For absolutely, positively phenomenal sound in motion. Super Tuner 2 by Pioneer. Lightning strikes again.
Back at National Trail Raceway, every major championship drag racing event like this Spring Nationals is full of excitement and dramatic stories. This one centers around a man that's high in the points chase. Jeb Allen already won the Gator Nationals this season. Here in round number 1 racing, Jeb in the near lane is against Larry Brown. The crew on the starting line spots something wrong with the motor. Competition director Steve Gibbs looks it over and gives the word, "Shut it off." Jeb looks at Steve, looks back at the motor, looks back at Steve. Steve again says, "Shut it off." And Jeb says, "Oh no, something must be leaking." All the work, all the effort. He's out in round number 1. And this man, Larry Brown, had an easy run to go into round number 2 racing, where he'll be matched against Bob Noyes, the Californian driving for Jim Brissett. Big Daddy Don Garlits, 21 Top Fuel victories to his credit in his long career against the hometown favorite, Jake Coughlin, who has what must be motorsport's youngest pit crew. Shirley Muldowney, already a 2-time Top Fuel champion at the Spring Nationals, against her former crew chief, Connie Kalita. From Houston, Texas, comes Steve Stevens. He'll be racing against the current points leader in the World Championship Series chase, Gary Beck. In second round racing, it's Big Daddy Don Garlits. From his base in Sefner, Florida, Don has visited the winner's circle 21 times in a career that spans over 20 years behind the wheel of a Top Fuel dragster. The hometown favorite, Jake Coughlin, provided some of the drama of the 1979 Spring Nationals when Jake drove his Top Fuel car with no parachute open into the catch net at the end of the track. After this incident, Jake Coughlin said, "I quit, I'm through," and sold all of the component pieces and the dragster. He came back, and Steve asked him why.
We thought about it for an awful long time after the crash, and we decided that I just can't play golf and tennis and all the other things that you're supposed to do. So I talked with the boys and my wife, and I said, "Well, what do you think? I'd like to go racing. Will you go with me?" And they said, "Yep," and here we are.
And here he is with the unenviable task of meeting Big Daddy Don Garlits in the second round of this year's event. Both cars have completed their burnouts, concentrating on the starting line, and it is Garlits out first, wavering a little bit around his lane, and Garlits wins the race, 6.06 seconds, his speed over 245 miles an hour. Back at the starting line, it's the premier lady driver in all of motor racing, Shirley Muldowney, against her former crew chief, Connie Kalita. Back in 1977, when Shirley won her world championship title, it was this man, Connie Kalita, that was her crew chief. Connie said he wanted to get back into drag racing. He's a former national champion. He had been out of the sport a number of years. He wanted to get back into the cockpit, and he went Top Fuel racing. He went racing so well that this year he met Shirley in the finals of the Winter Nationals. Shirley winning the race. Connie wants to avenge that loss. Steve talked to him about racing Shirley.
You think you try harder sometimes against Shirley? I mean, maybe subconsciously a little more effort goes into racing Shirley Muldowney?
On the starting line, probably so. I mean, you know, out at Pomona, it showed it, and up at Bakersfield, the same kind of a thing. I put a maximum effort on the starting line driving because it's strong, and, you know, I feel that I can drive as good, I think I can actually drive better than what she can.
We'll find out in just a moment as final preparations being made to Connie Kalita. Both drivers, the burnouts are completed, and it's all on the starting line. We'll see who has the best reactions. It looks like Shirley Muldowney beat Connie Colita off the starting line. A puff of smoke out of Shirley's car, but she wins it going away. 6.02 seconds her elapsed time. And yes, Connie Colita, you ran quicker, but Shirley got there first. 6 seconds flat for Connie Colita. Both lanes are racetracks as far as timing. There you saw the puff of smoke, and Shirley with a big victory. Her crew very happy in the turnaround, and so is Shirley. In the turnaround area is Steve Evans. What are they saying?
You're excited.
Oh, we're happy. God was good to me, Steve.
Connie told me earlier that he thought he was a better driver than you are.
He's kidding himself. He learned a lot by working with me. And I don't know. He's a pretty good driver.
You really concentrated on the tree this one, didn't you?
I couldn't lose this one, you know. I'd never live it down, really. Go back to Mount Clemens, Michigan, they'd disown me.
Looks like some motor problems, though.
It was a head gasket. I felt it go away. I saw the lights coming. I just kept my foot in it.
Okay, you guys are anxious. We'll see you next round.
Back to the pits, Shirley Muldowney and her young crew. A lot of work to get them ready for the semifinals. As another pair of racers completing their burnouts. Larry Brown, he had the gift in round one when Jeb Allen was forced to shut off with an oil leak. Larry just taking over the driving chores of Mark Campbell's dragster. Mark from Columbus and Larry from Vandalia, Ohio. The big contingent of Ohio fans on hand, rooting for their hometown favorites. Bob Noyce, faced with not only a tough competitor, but also a very strong headwind that's blowing directly into the face of these drivers and these cars as they go through the 1,320 feet of racing surface. A good lead by both cars, and something goes wrong with Bob Noyce, and another easy go for Larry Brown, as her elapsed time reflects it, only 6.25 seconds. As we watch again, you'll see a bit of a hole shot for Larry Brown, and then a puff of smoke, the car making a violent move to the center line. Bob Noyce keeping it in his own lane. But that's the end of the day for the team of Brissett and Noyce, and into the semifinals goes the very happy crew from Ohio, Larry Brown and Mark Campbell and a whole bunch of people.
Okay, clutch.
Meanwhile, back on the track, the NHRA Safety Safari cleaning up the oil. A big emphasis on safety, and one of the most important items, that catch net that you saw Jake Coughlin hit earlier. Steve's going to tell us about it.
If your parachute fails to open at over 200 miles an hour, all the brakes in the world won't keep you out of Farmer Brown's front yard over here. The alternative is hit the bullseye on this aircraft carrier-style catch net, as Brian Raymer did it just perfectly. He didn't brake so hard that the car was bouncing. It came in flat on all fours right under the net, and he is still in competition. That's the way it's done down here at the far end.
Thank you, Steve. And back at the front end of the track, it is Steve Stevens from Houston, Texas. Mostly a weekend racer. Steve making some of the national events this season, and he's racing against Gary Beck, whose car is owned by Larry Miner. Larry, a prominent businessman and potato farmer in San Jacinto, California, is into other types of racing, drag boat racing, even airplane racing, but right now concentrating his sole efforts on this top fuel dragster that is currently leading the World Championship points chase. Off the starting line, Gary Beck with a bit of a bobble. That lets Steve Stevens pull ahead slightly, and at the finish line, it's an upset. Steve Stevens wins it, 6.19 seconds. His speed only 203 miles an hour. As we watch again, you see Beck losing traction and losing control momentarily, enough to let Steve Stevens pull ahead and win by less than a car length.
For a hobby racer from Houston, Texas, this has got to be really a thrill, downing Gary Beck and going to the semis.
It's great. We look like we got a little damage here. I hope we can get it fixed in time, because we sure did enjoy beating him, though. It's something to beat him.
You bet it is. I think this is as far as you've gone in national event competition.
Yes, we went second round several times, but as far as we went.
Okay, well, go get them. From
Thank you
Houston,
much.
Texas, the Quicksilver car and Steve Stevens. They're tickled.
And they've got work to do, Steve, as the oil at the back of the motor shows it. We'll be back at the Spring Nationals in just a moment.
See, we broke the chassis from before.
In the split-second world of drag racing, there's no margin for error. Man and machine must function perfectly. When the green light goes on, the mind must shut out everything. Because at 150 miles per hour, reactions must be razor sharp. To win, it takes three things. Total concentration by the rider, a great tuner,
like my partner here, Byron Hines, and a great machine like this Suzuki drag bike. Suzuki makes great street bikes too, as you'll see in the commercials later in this program. So like Byron says, stay tuned.
This is the Spring Nationals. I'm Dave McClelland along with Steve Evans, and this is one of the most popular cars in all of drag racing, a funny car. A 2,000 horsepower engine, the driver of utmost importance. In round number 2 racing, we'll be seeing Tom Hoover, driver of the Showtime Corvette. He'll be facing Rick Johnson, wheeling the car owned by Fred Castronova. Ed the Ace McCulloch of Sanger, California. Dale Paldy will be his competitor at the wheel of the War Eagle. The reigning world champion Raymond Beadle in the famed Blue Max against John Collins. Billy Meyer here with his lovely wife Deborah against the 4-time world champion Don the Snake Prudhomme. In round number 2 competition, it is Tom Hoover, the Corvette-bodied creation, against Rick Johnson. All eyes on the starting line. A great lead by both cars. Johnson drifting close to the center line. And a close race as Tom Hoover wins it. His elapsed time, 6.22 seconds. The losing time, 6.25 seconds. Only 0.03 of a second difference between the two cars. And the difference may be that Rick Johnson, drifting very close to the center line, may have had to lift. And here's Rick Johnson. He's not happy with himself. He's packing up his helmet, taking his fire suit off, and decides, why sit out here in the wind? Let's go back inside. Our next pair of cars, Ed McCulloch in the lane nearest the camera, the War Eagle of Dale Paldy, the far lane. McCulloch dropped out of drag racing for a couple of years, back in it again at the start of this season. And it's got his hands full, not only with a 2,000 horsepower car, but the strong headwinds that are blowing on this track can affect these full-bodied cars a bit more than they can the slender and narrow top-fuel dragsters that we've seen thus far. The War Eagle of Dale Paldy into the winner's circle at the Winter Nationals. McCulloch has yet to win a national title in his comeback. His crew chief, Bernie Lewis, checking everything over, saying it's ready to go. Paldy patiently waiting as both cars getting set for the all-important start down the quarter mile. And Paldy up in smoke, almost hits the guardrail. McCulloch holds the car through for the quarter of a mile at 6.26 seconds at 226 miles an hour. As we watch again, you see the smoke coming off the tires, indicating losing traction for Paldy. McCulloch also losing traction just a bit, but he comes back and recovers and takes the win over the War Eagle.
Until Don Prudhomme came along, there was no bigger name in AA fuel funny car racing than Ed the Ace McCulloch from Fresno, California. McCulloch now going into the semifinals. Ace, were you concerned about that lane that had just been oiled down?
Well, actually, I was when I first saw it get oiled, and then Gary went up there and took the opposite lane, and I questioned that, and they do a really good job cleaning it up. They run the track dryer over, so I figured it'd be okay, so we took it.
How's it feel to be back in a serious threat now?
Well, you know, what can I say? The car runs well. We'd like to be running a little bit better here, but we're not hurting it bad. We had a little problem qualifying, but got it straightened out, and I think we'll be okay.
Looks like it. Thank you, Ace.
Thanks, Steve.
As Ed heads back to the car on the starting line, it is the defending world champion, Ray Beadle in the Blue Max from Dallas, Texas. Stopping the string at 4 for Don Prudhomme. Last season, Ray Beadle won the very coveted world champion title. He's against John Collins in one of the Datsun 280Z bodied cars. John had the misfortune of crashing his car in March of this year, and this is his first major event since a total rebuild. Ray Beadle, the world champion, in the near lane. John Collins in the right lane. And a wheel stand start by Beadle. He's all over the race course, but he gets it straightened out, and he's on fire. An engine explosion, the fire coming out underneath the car. The parachute whipping through the breeze. Beadle trying to bring the car to a stop. Steve, you're down there. What's going on?
This time, Dave, Raymond Beadle sliding to a stop down here. The emergency crews rushing from both ends of the racetrack. He actually stopped in rather an awkward part of the racetrack and not normally where the fire equipment is needed, but they're on him now.
Ray Beadle encased in his fire suit, A-OK. As we watch it again, you see him leave the starting line. The wheels are in the air. It begins to drift out towards the guardrail. Raymond drops the front wheels back on the pavement. Meanwhile, John Collins trying his best to pull ahead of the world champion. As Raymond making the charge for the finish line, the engine explodes. Some piston smoke out of John Collins' car, but the fire is the important thing in the Blue Max. You see the parachute, part of the shroud lines burned away, and there is where Ray Beadle hits the onboard fire extinguishers and knocks the fire down. John Collins with his arm around Ray Beadle. Both drivers A-OK. The Blue Max itself singed just a little bit. Here again, Steve.
Dave, Raymond Beadle says it was a little hot under his seat. You okay?
Yeah, it's okay. The car just wheel stood real good, and I had to let it down, and yeah, it's okay. Just got a little hot, no problem.
The onboard fire extinguishers really help.
Yeah, well, the car, I wasn't going to use them at first, and they got too hot, and I just had to.
I'll bet it got hot.
Yeah, a little hot.
And you know, waiting down here for you is some of the finest emergency crews anywhere.
Yeah, no problem. They were right on the deal. I just want them to get the body up in case it was on fire, but it's okay.
Okay, what now? Change engines?
Yeah, we'll change motors. No problem.
Okay, Raymond Beadle is all right, but what a spectacular fire under the Blue Max.
Steve, the emergency crew having their work cut out for him today is back on the starting line. The man that has won 4 consecutive world champion titles in funny car racing. Don Prudhomme sits patiently as his crew chief Bob Brandt starts the some 2,000 horsepower engine. The body will be lowered down over Prudhomme and latched into place firmly. But now it goes back up again momentarily. And Bob Brandt walks in, checks everything over, the engine just sort of idling away. They can run for a number of minutes. They carry water inside the blocks and cylinder heads. And on nitromethane fuel, just idling, they can idle for quite some time before they get too hot. As he pulls into the water and does his burnout, a very popular event with the drag racing fans. Don Prudhomme is matched against Billy Meyer from Waco, Texas. Here in slow motion, we see the burnout, and the rear of the car seems to rise in the air, and that is because the tires, as they are spinning, grow in size some 6 inches or more due to the centrifugal force. The purpose of the burnout, of course, is to heat the tires up. Prudhomme doing another dry burnout, as does Billy Meyer. Meyer backs into position, and the starter giving the cutoff sign to Don Prudhomme. The crew for Billy Meyer applauding. Competition director Steve Gibbs shaking his head to the snake, saying, no, you cannot run it. Something apparently coming out of the motor, either oil or water, that would have made it hazardous for Prudhomme to complete the run, so it's a single for Billy Meyer. Billy, out of shape right off the starting line, gets near the center line and backs away. If he had had a good run going, you may have seen him trying for a good low elapsed time, as the low ET from the previous round getting the choice of lanes in the next round of racing. But for Prudhomme, his racing day is done, and this is a very rare occurrence. You very seldom see Don Prudhomme shut off at the starting line for leakage of any type. For Billy Meyer, a nice victory as he now goes into the semifinals, taking off his fire suit and racing equipment, handing it to his wife, Deborah. Drag racing, often a husband and wife combination.
When you look into my eyes and you see the crazy gypsy in my soul, it always comes as a surprise when I feel my withered roots begin to grow. Well, I never had a place that I could call my very own, but that's all right, my love, 'cause you're my home. When you touch my weary head and you tell me everything will be alright, you say, use my body for your bed, and my love will keep you warm throughout the night. Well, I'll never be a stranger and I'll never be alone. Wherever we're together, that's my home. You're my home.
Over 600 race cars began competition here 4 days ago at this 16th annual Spring Nationals. Today, an overflow crowd of spectators in the house for these final eliminations. Meantime, Steve's caught up with Don Prudhomme.
Well, just when things look brightest, low ET of the event at a 6:08, you give one away. What happened?
It had an oil leak, Steve. You know, these things you just never know. They shake and vibrate so much from run to run, you don't know what the heck's going to happen. And the car had an oil leak. You know, it was an oil line that was left loose, and, you know, what can I say? Shut us off.
Well, everyone knows that it's the quickest car in all of drag racing. It's just a matter of time before it's back in the winner's circle.
Yeah, it's disappointing. You know, we felt as though that the car could run real good here, run a 6:08, and, you know, I think it had a little left in it, and it's disappointing.
A real tough break for Don Prudhomme. Pro Stock Eliminator, one of the most popular of all categories. Earlier this weekend, Steve took a close-up look.
A championship caliber pro stocker like this Camaro costs over twice as much to build as any top fuel dragster or funny car here at the Spring Nationals. They're the most sophisticated machines in all of drag racing. Even though they're all-out race cars, they have to maintain a street appearance, use most of the original body, retain the exact dimensions of the original car, even carry a passenger seat. All in all, 8 seconds at 160 miles an hour is drag racing's most expensive proposition.
And the man who drives this car is Lee Shepard from Arlington, Texas. Winner of 3 national events thus far this season. He'll be racing against Kevin Roddy from Tucson, Arizona, the man who lost to Shepard at Pomona. Bob Glidden, the world champion, will be driving his Ford Fairmont against the Chevy Monza of Frank Iaconio. And here he is, the world champion, Bob Glidden, proudly bearing the big #1 on the window. Glidden, the winner of every national event over a 12-month period, won the national title last season. He's racing against Frank Iaconio, #2 in the world, to Glidden last year. With the wheels high in the air, the gasoline-burning Pro Stock cars race to the finish line, and a close race it is as Glidden pulls it out at the finish. The crew and wife Etta looking on with glee as Bob Glidden takes the win in the semifinal round. As we watch in slow motion, approaching the timing lights at the end of the track, Glidden beginning to pull away, and by a car length wins it over Frank Iaconio. Kevin Roddy drives the Chevrolet Camaro against the all-winning Camaro of Rare and Morrison, driven by Lee Shepard. Winner of the Winter Nationals, the Gator Nationals, the Cajun Nationals. Can he make it 4 in a row? He has to get past Kevin Roddy to make it to the finals. Horsepower beginning to tell as Lee Shepard pulls away. His elapsed time, 8.58 seconds. His speed, 155 miles an hour. As he gets close to the finish line, his lead increases. And it is Bob Glidden and Lee Shepard in the finals. When I spoke of the over 600 race cars in competition, the bulk of those racers fall into the sportsman category of competition. Those Eliminator champions were decided earlier today. In the handicap racing of Stock Eliminator, in the near lane, 27-year-old Mike Magistro of Wantagh, New York, came from behind to defeat Ray Stover of Mount Vernon, Ohio. In doing so, he took home some $4,000 in cash and awards. The Lady World Champion in Super Stock Eliminator, Amy Falk, got the lead and held on for the win over Lynn LaPerriere in Super Stock Eliminator. Modified Eliminator, some $8,000 going to Don Bowles, a coal mine company president, over F.J. Smith of Cayuga, Ontario, Canada. Competition Eliminator saw Bill Mitchell of West Islip, New York, take his first title ever and some $9,500 as he defeated another Canadian, Jake Clausen of Winnipeg. Pro Comp Eliminator, the top of the line of the sportsman categories. And this driver, Brian Raymer out of Denver, Colorado, was the man you saw put his dragster right into the bullseye, into the catch net at the finish, but yet here he is in the final against Ken Vini. Ken Vini has been in the finals 13 times prior to this Spring Nationals event, and he would like to take home another of the famed NHRA Oscars. But Brian Raymer has low elapsed time of the meet thus far in Pro Comp racing at 6.55 seconds. These dragsters very similar to Top Fuel racers, except they run on straight methanol, no nitromethane fuel allowed. Brian Raymer and Ken Vini, the final stage of the final race in Pro Comp Eliminator. Vini beginning to lose ground as his car wavering from the center line of his lane, and it is Brian Raymer, a real success story, as he wins the Pro Comp Eliminator title at 6.66 seconds. Here you see Ken Vini drifting out of control and Brian Raymer streaking for the finish line in the win. At the turnaround area, here's Steve Evans.
Brian Raymer, did you ever think when you drilled the target on that net that you'd be right here and headed for the winner's circle?
I seriously had my doubts. I guarantee you. I was, in fact, that was my first thought about going through the net. It's going to make it hard to get to the final.
You amazed everybody making repairs. How'd you do that?
A lot of help. Really? A lot of help. And a lot of different racers, including the people we beat.
Is that right? Well, Ken Vini's a tough one. This makes 2 national events this year for you, right?
That's right.
And runner-up last year at the World Finals. Congratulations. Brian Raymer from the high country of Denver proves he can do it at sea level, too.
After overcoming incredible odds, Brian Raymer heads our list of sportsman champions. We'll be back with the semifinals of Top Fuel and Funny Car in just a moment.
Engine, unique 16-valve 4-stroke powerhouse. Suspension, multi-adjustable rear shocks. Aluminum swing-arm. And front air forks. Brakes, slotted discs. The machine, the new GS1100. Another great performer from Suzuki.
We've placed the Diamond P Sports camera inside Shirley Muldowney's pickup truck, and her competitor, Don Garlitz, is leaning against the hood, watching the semifinal round of Funny Car Eliminator. The engine is running, the body comes down, an incredible story. The Blue Max of Raymond Beadle is running and ready to go. An incredible rebuild job. They stripped this car to the bare chassis. They put a new engine in, a new parachute on, new safety belts after that devastating fire in the previous round. A pair of Texans matching up here. Ray Beadle, #1 in the world last season. Billy Meyer is #4. A tribute to the crew of Dale Emery, Fred Miller, and Dee Gant to get this car to the position that it is right now, running and doing its burnout in the semifinals. Beadle backing up, and Billy Meyer can't back up. He's got problems. If he comes across that center line, and he did, he is out of competition. He's driving the car back up to the starting line. And this is a sight you very rarely see on any drag strip. 2 cars coming at each other head on. The Blue Max against Billy Meyer. Meyer coming around him and passing him. heading back behind the starting line area. As Beetle's crew concentrating on their car, they know what happens when you cross the center line, you go out of racing. So it will be a single for Beetle as Billy Meyer, a very unhappy young man, tells his crew that something apparently went wrong with the reverser and he couldn't back up. Beetle on a very, very strong run. And there is low elapsed time of funny car eliminations, 6.04 seconds, and that on a completely rebuilt car. His speed 227 miles an hour. Billy Meyer, stripping off his fire suit, heads back through the staging lane.
Well, even though you had already spent your arsenal of engines, you sure didn't take it easy. Low ET of the meet, 604, Raymond.
Well, we thought we'd run good. You know, we've been having trouble, Steve.
I'll say you've been having trouble.
Well, when we saw Billy break his reverser, well, you know, that made me feel a lot better because I knew unless we changed the rules, all of a sudden you can't cross the center line.
That's right. And everybody in the pits is saying only Raymond Beetle and only in Texas could this have happened to just completely overhaul this car from seat belts to fire suit to everything.
Well, like I said, I knew we run really good because when I ran, I blew the windshield in, so I knew I run really good.
A broken windshield in the Blue Max. I'm sure you must have another windshield, too.
Sure enough.
I figured you did.
So it's back to the pits and more work for the Blue Max crew, but it's well worthwhile as they're in the finals. We'll find out who will be running Ray Beetle in just a couple of seconds, as it is Tom Hoover with the Showtime Corvette against Ed the Ace McCulloch. As you heard earlier, McCulloch, and something wrong with McCulloch's car. An incredible amount of breakage in this Spring Nationals Championship. They're frantically working on the right-hand side of the engine. The crew in trying everything they can to fix it. And with this engine running, it puts out a tremendous amount of heat, especially out of the header and exhaust system. They're kicking at something, and actually it looks like they're beating on something on the right-hand side of the car. Whatever it is, it's serious enough to keep Ed McCulloch from pulling up to the starting line. Again, Steve Gibbs shaking his head no and saying it's a single for Tom Hoover. So it is Tom Hoover against Ray Beetle in the final of Funny Car Eliminator. There's a phrase called "That's drag racing," and it's hard to believe the tough breaks that have come the ways today, and Ed McCulloch, the recipient of the latest out of competition, having to be shut off at the starting line. But for his competitor in this race, Tom Hoover, he heads into the finals, but he's got his work cut out for him. 6.04 was the time for Ray Beetle, and it will be Beetle with lane choice in the finals. This is Shirley Muldowney. She defeated her former crew chief on an outstanding driving job the previous round of racing. She is against the best known and the best top fuel racer of all time, Big Daddy Don Garlits. Garlits, a former world champion, many-time national champion. A total of 21 top fuel titles has been won by this innovative and creative top fuel racer. From inside Shirley Muldowney's push truck, we watch her crew wiping down the tires as both drivers concentrating on the light beams, concentrating on the electronic starting device, the Christmas tree. We're just seconds away from race time. And it's a red light start for Don Garlits. The crew realizes it. Garlits may not, Shirley may not, but Shirley wins at 6.04 seconds. But listen to this. Don Garlits with the foul had low elapsed time of the meet at 5.93 seconds. And here comes the crew, and are they happy?
Not bad, man. Come on, let's go. Red light. I'm over it. All right. You wasted that thing. It burned up, didn't it? Look how fast it went. What did ours do? Did it burn up? I don't think so. I think it's weak. It needs a little more flour. Okay, be all right.
Shirley Muldowney, winner over the red lighting Don Garlits.
You thought you lost, huh?
Yeah, I didn't see his red light. I saw that black thing marching away from me. I couldn't believe it.
Well, I heard a whoop of delight when the turnaround crew here told you that he had red lighted.
Couldn't believe it.
And this was a brand new engine, right?
Yes. We ran this one at Milwaukee 2 weeks ago. Did a really good job with it. We just knew it was going to get the job done, but...
Well, the pressure of racing Shirley Muldowney even affects a pro like Garlitz, I think.
Well, I don't know. It had to be not that bad a red light.
But you're known to be so quick.
Sometimes, but Baton Rouge proved that everybody makes mistakes, Steve.
Well, there went your two favorite targets, Khalid and Garlitz, 1-2.
Yeah, but, you know, Garlitz, he is drag racing, isn't he?
Oh, you bet. Okay, Shirley Muldowney, she's tickled. She got a break, and it takes one sometimes to win the big drag races.
And she knows it, Steve. She's already won the Spring Nationals twice before. When you talk about breaks, the competitor in the far lane, Larry Brown's had his share. Jeb Allen forced to shut off against him in the first round. Bob Noyce exploding a motor alongside of him in the second round. While the upset of the meet was pulled off by this man, Steve Stevens, as he defeated Gary Beck in the second round of racing. And another red light. Steve Stevens red lights away his chance for victory, and it is Larry Brown. He just moved into the cockpit of this car a couple of 3 weeks ago. The car owned by Mark Campbell of Columbus, and there you see the red light by Steve Stevens. Just a hair too early, he left the starting line.
Predictably enough, Dave, it is bedlam down here as the hometown car goes into the final round of Top Fuel here at the Spring Nationals. And look at the size of this Roach crew, congratulating their driver, Larry Brown, his first ever final round appearance in NHRA Championship drag racing.
We'll be back with the finals in just a moment.
I wish I could have.
If you've ever felt that the life of a professional racing mechanic is a bed of roses, all you had to do is be in the Blue Max pit area this weekend to dispel that notion forever. After the disastrous fire, the car completely rebuilt, ran low elapsed time of the meet thus far, now preventive maintenance taking place, and the replacement of the broken windshield. In the Hoover pit area, though, things a bit different.
Dave, the crew chief on Tom Hoover's Showtime Corvette, is his dad, 74-year-old George Hoover of Minneapolis. George, how you coming here?
Oh, we're going to make it, that's for sure.
I just saw you walked over to Raymond Beetle and you said, I don't know why you guys are working so hard, you're just racing us.
Well, of course, it's all in kidding, you know. I don't know what to say there.
Well, Beetle says he doesn't trust you. He said you're liable to lean on this thing and just maybe beat him.
Well, of course we're going to lean on it. What else?
While they finish up preparations on both the Blue Max and the Showtime cars for Funny Car Eliminator, here are the finals of Pro Stock. Bob Glidden, #1 in the world last season. In fact, he has been the world champion 4 out of the past 6 years. Has brought out a Ford Fairmont here in the middle of this season and is challenging Rare and Morrison. The Lee Shepard-driven Camaro has been in the winner's circle 3 times thus far this season. And Bob Glidden trying to put a halt to it. A bit of a hole shot going to Shepard. Can the Camaro hold on at the finish line? We'll find out in just a couple of seconds. No, it does not. It is Bob Glidden. 8.53 seconds, 155 miles an hour. And Bob Glidden takes his 28th career victory with this Spring Nationals championship. You see, one of the closest races of the day, just about a wheel width separating the two.
Well, I believe this is called Sweet Revenge, right?
I'm going to tell you, Steve, huh? Thrilled to death. What a race. That was some race.
And you cut a good light. I know that was weighing heavily on your mind.
Well, I'll tell you, we may have, but he was right there.
You hear the sounds of the 2,000 horsepower engines, the nitro-burning power plants underneath the fiberglass replica bodies that constitute Funny Car Eliminator. All the work is over. There's one more run to go. Will it be the Blue Max of Raymond Beetle from Dallas, Texas, or from Minneapolis, Minnesota, the Showtime Corvette of Tom Hoover? And Hoover up in smoke right off the starting line. Beetle another great run. And that's how good it was, 6.09 seconds at 235 miles an hour. As we look back on the run, you see Tom Hoover, the minute he let the clutch out, and his dad, the crew chief, said they were going to lean on it a little bit. Well, maybe they leaned just a little too much. Ray Beadle not quite in such a rush to get back to the pits.
One in the background, maybe you can hear it poppling and sizzling and cooking, but here is Raymond Beadle, the Spring Nationals funny car champ. What a struggle.
Let her pop as long as we win.
Hoover smoked the tires.
It was a good run. I knew we run good. I didn't know what happened to him. I never saw him. I didn't know that.
Another 6-0.
How good was it?
6:09.
6:09. Well, can't complain.
One more race remains. And will the luck hold out for this man, Larry Brown, the new driver for Mark Campbell's car? All of the Ohio rooters are focusing on this car. It is from the Columbus area. But a tough race for Larry Brown in the finals, as Shirley Muldowney has already won this event 2 times previously. She's a former world champion back in 1977. The final race of the day, Top Fuel Eliminator. A great lead for Shirley Muldowney. And pulling away from Larry Brown, Shirley Muldowney wins it 6.04 seconds. Her speed 233 miles an hour. And with a wave to the camera, Shirley Muldowney coasts to a halt. An instant replay you'll watch as just a steady lead being built up by Shirley as she makes it to the finish line first.
3 times. She said earlier that this was her lucky race. This was her favorite race. It was the first race she ever won.
Yeah, my mom was here then, too. Can I say hello to my mom?
Please.
Hi, May Rock in Schenectady, New York.
Well, you got to be thrilled.
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm happy.
Well, and you race, the money is important, too, when you do this for a living, right?
It really is, and the money's awfully good here, and we could really use it, so we're very happy. The guys are, look at
No, I know. Just like Raymond Beadle, you got some world championship points you really need.
We're happy about that because we're still, you know, we want to chase it. It's still kind of early. You never know.
That's right. So that's 2 national events in 1 year. You got by iconic leader Don Garlitz.
Thank you.
You outdrove them, babe.
Yeah. But, you know, they prepare the cars so good. It's don't have to worry about getting my boots wet now.
Celebrate with your guys, your son John, crew chief Ron Tobler, Butch and the rest of them. Shirley Muldowney, our Spring Nationals top fuel champion.